So the Champions Cup is back. This is take two. Back this weekend. Friday games, there's two of them. First one, Edinburgh taking on the Falcons. The next one sees Scarlets hosting Ulster. Yeah, it should be a pretty good weekend of rugby. Pretty pumped to have the Champions Cup back. All the guys who've been in internationals over November back with their clubs. So, yeah, should be a good weekend of rugby. For the first one, Edinburgh up against Newcastle. Funnily enough, this is in the pool, number 1 up against number 2. I mean, Newcastle in the Premiership are at the bottom at the moment. Admittedly, it's still pretty tight there, with not much between any number of teams towards the bottom half of the table. But yeah, it's 1 and 2 in the pool. Newcastle are undefeated. They've beaten the 2 French teams in the pool. Edinburgh, I mean, they're slightly better in the pro, but if you're an American sports fan, you say they're still below 500. You know, they've got a losing ratio in their fixtures. I think they have 4 wins and 6 losses, so they're 2 wins below parity, below 500. So it's a good time to, I guess, get back onto winning ways in the Champions Cup. For Edinburgh, who are very good at home, their internationals are back, like I said, so front row is looking pretty good with Schoeman, McAnally and Nell. McAnally and Nell back from Scotland duties. Gilchrist in the second row, Ritchie and Watson in the back row, so that's a fair few big names back for Edinburgh. If you're an Edinburgh fan, you'd be pretty pleased looking at that lineup. It doesn't stop there. You got Purgos at number 9, Kinghorns at 15. Interestingly, Van der Valt's ahead of Hickey in the number 10 jersey, so it is a pretty strong looking Edinburgh team. And yeah, at home they're going to be firm favourites. But Newcastle, in Europe, they just seem to be clicking thus far. We'll see if they're able to keep that or whether it's just been kind of an exception to the rule. They have got a heap of injuries from what I've seen, to the point where I read they're in dialogue with the European Professional Club Rugby administrators as to what they're going to do, because I think they've had 3 tight head props get injured. And it's hard to have a legal scrum without a fit tight head prop, so I think they're struggling with that. So we'll see what happens, if anything, with this dialogue, whether they're going to delay or whether they're going to go ahead. But they do have some big names back as well. They got Brocklebank and McGuigan in the front row. Wilson's got an ear infection. That's just disappointing after him playing so well with England. So it is Burrows, Graham, and Chick in the back row, which again is nothing to be snuffed at. Interesting youngster Brett Conan. I haven't seen much of him apart from a couple of highlights videos. Starts at 10. I believe he played some games in the Premiership recently. I haven't seen them, but heard good things about him. So we'll see how he goes at 10. Chris Harris is at 13. Flood is on the bench. So it's going to be a tough ask for Newcastle with all these injuries. The bookies have got Edinburgh as 10-point favourites. But man, imagine if Newcastle can get a win here. That would put them, like, they'd be really sitting pretty in this pool. But if Edinburgh can get a win, they really close that gap. And both of them will be trying to get away from the 2 French teams who are up against each other this weekend as well. So that should be a good game. The next one is Scarlets up against Ulster. For Scarlets, it's not been the best European run so far. Obviously, only 2 games in, but they've had 2 losses. Pretty disappointing one against Racing at home. For Ulster, it's a win and a loss, so kind of just steady as she goes so far. I think Racing is at the top of this pool with the 2 wins. Neither can really afford to lose, I suppose, but especially Scarlets. Scarlets will be absolutely desperate for a win here. They have met in the Pro so far this season, and it's 1 apiece. Recently in November, Scarlets beat Ulster 29 points to 12, but that was in November, so a lot of the international guys were out, and they met back in September over in Northern Ireland, and it was 15 points to 13 to Ulster, so they did edge that one. So no real trend there of which side's going to get on top of the other. But yeah, with the internationals back, it's going to be a different story as well. And then the Pro 14, they're 2 and 3 in terms of their standings there. They're both behind Leinster in Conference B, and they're on the same points. So This looks to be a real cracker. I don't know. We'll look at the teams. Scarlets, obviously, they got some players back. James Davis is back from injury, so he starts on the open side. That's good news. Samson Lee's there. Ken Owens is back. No Lee Halfpenny or Jake Ball. They're both still suffering from concussion from what I've read, or at least recovering from concussion. Gareth Davis and Reece Patchell are 9 and 10, so that's going to be an excitement machine kind of combo there, so we'll see how they go. For Ulster, again, internationals back. Rory Best is back. Henderson's back. Addison's back. Excitement machine of Stockdale is back. So yeah, Spate's on the right wing. I think Ludic's at 15, so it's a bit of a shuffle round, but definitely a stronger team to have all those big names back as well. The bookies have got Scarlets by 8. As I said, they'll be pretty desperate for a win. On paper, it looks like it's going to be real exciting. Marcel Coetzee up against James Davis will be an interesting one. Stockdale up against McNichol, all these kind of things. Pressure is definitely on. We'll see which team handles it better. I haven't checked the weather report for Edinburgh, but I did quickly look for the Scarlets game, and maybe showers, but mostly looking fine, so fingers crossed. You guys let me know your thoughts on these ones. How do you think they'll go? Do you think the bookies have got it right with both the home teams kind of getting fairly comfortable wins, or do you think it could be a bit closer than all that? Yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.